Welcome to the Elokus channel. This is class number 22 in the second discourse of the book B'Shoshe Ekdimu. This discourse is Oteh Erka Salma, and we are holding a class number 22. And this is the middle of chapter 8. This is getting super deep, and I hope you're all with me as we dive deep, deep, deep. So in the last class, we were learning how the main primary, that even though the lights, again, the thrust over here is to explain the difference, how we're trying to differentiate and say that the lights are infinite, the lights of Atzilus, but the vessels are finite or have some measure of finitude. And because of that, we can then say that Atzilus, which acts as a mediator between God Himself, between the infinity of Hashem and the finite creations, the mediator has to have both qualities, both representing both sides. So the lights would be infinite, and the oiros of the spheroids, because just like, let's look at ourselves, we have a body and a soul. So when we speak about Atzilus, we speak about the divine body. There is a body and a soul. The supernal man is a body and a soul. The soul of him is pure infinity, oiros that have no specification. They're not constricted, and they're limitless, and they represent the source where they come from. And then the representation of the creations are in the kalim and the vessels, because the vessels are limited. So he challenged that because he asked the question in the last class we were learning. The oir also, we know that the kav, the light, the oiros of Atzilus, the lights of Atzilus, they come from the kav. The kav is the thread of light that Hashem breaks open the tzimtzum and into the black hole. He inserts this thread, and the thread, he explained, is a thread of the Ein Sof. So if so, there is this Ein Sofishness. There is this infinity all the way going down into the vessels. So he asked earlier, but isn't it true that the light of the kav passes through the tzimtzum, and the tzimtzum does a really good job on the light by doing what? By changing it completely, because we know the light of the kav has a beginning, has a middle, has an end. But the Or Ein Sof that was present before Hashem made the tzimtzum had no beginning and had no end, and it was completely limitless. So he acknowledged that, and he's still going to come back to that. However, he's saying that's secondary to the light. The main element of the light is that it's still a continuation of the Or Ein Sof. However, the primary purpose of the tzimtzum is not for the lights, although it does lower the light, but the primary power of the tzimtzum is for the kalim, for the vessel. The vessels are really born out of the tzimtzum. They are a derivative of the tzimtzum, and therefore they have real limitation, or their idea is by them you can really speak of limitation. So this is where we were learning in last class, and let's continue that. The primary element of tzimtzum is for the sake of the coming about of the vessels. As it says in Eitz the first portal, Soif Anaf Nun Gimel, at the end of the branch 53. The need of the tzimtzum in order to bring forth the vessels. Because and even though, what is the tzimtzum doing? The tzimtzum is limiting the light and contracting the light and diminishing the light, as we just mentioned earlier. That the light that is reintroduced into the space of the tzimtzum, compared to the light that is outside of that space, or the light that was present in that space before the tzimtzum was ever there, is incomparably lower. It's a much lower light. So it's a tzimtzum, or it's a contracted light in miyutoi. So that effect, in addition to whatever effect it has on the light, its primary purpose is not for what it does to the light, but for what it allows to happen as a result of a dimmed light. As a result of having the lights dimmed, the kalim have now the possibility to be constructed. Yesh efsharis, it's possible now, ela keli, for the vessel, lehis avois, to come into being, ulehis galos, and to be revealed. In other words, the potential for the vessels is really there already earlier as well. As we discussed in last class, it's related to the Rishimu, to these letters, the trace that's left over, which is the power of Gavul, which is Hashem's, which is the infinite ability to affect in the finite. But as we discussed earlier, that ability is not seen and not present and not actualized in any way because it's lost in the infinite light. You would never notice it. So it's like finding and delineating one tiny bit of water in the ocean. You can't delineate it. It's lost in the greater ocean. So over here as well. So unless you dim the ocean, but when you dim the ocean and the ocean becomes so much less of an ocean, then you can find that speck, kind of something like that. So the kalim are, once the light gets dimmed, now the vessels are possible for them to come out. The hinei kalim. So he's going to explain why the vessels cannot emerge until you have a dimmed light. Which happens through the tzimtzum. Because the vessels, the whole idea of vessels is that they are something. Okay, there is already something, as opposed to the light. The light is not something. What is the light? The light is, it's called ayin, nothing, but what that really means is it's pre-something. It's the light is infinite potential, and therefore does not have specification to make it something. We discussed earlier, when something is not a color, then it has no definition. Then it's nothing. But once it's blue, it's blue. Okay, you can point your finger and say, "This is blue. This is yellow. This is brown. This is purple." Whatever the definitions of something, make it into something. So the concept of kalim is that it's something. For example, in Atzilus, we spoke about kalim. There is kindness. There is discipline. There is compassion. It's something identifiable. It's a something. So kalim are something. However, so what's the problem? The challenge is as follows. When the Orein Sof, which is the pre-somethingness, was shining with brightness, in other words, when you can feel and experience and see in a very open way the infinite power of God, that is not something, because if it would be something, it would be limited. And if that is blinding us, and that is very, very present, then a something cannot exist in this overpowering presence of the pre-somethingness. Look, when the Gili Orein Sof were shining, you couldn't find the kelim. The example I gave in the last class is that when you have a very bright, powerful revelation in your mind, you don't see the letters, the words that are there. There are words, but the words are so unnoticed in this overbearing, powerful light of the brilliance of the idea. So too, if the ayin, if the nothingness of the or, of the Ein Sof, is present, you could never find, there would never be able to be the presence of vessels. So for that reason, when the light, however, gets dimmed, and it's not so overbearing and powerful, of course, there's still energy that you still feel, but you don't sense the limitlessness of the energy. Then you can start looking for the possibility of definitions. You can start working to find, to cut out, so to speak, from within the light, shapes and forms or definitive elements. Especially since it's really there, it's just that it was completely blocked by the light. Now, to further support this idea that when the lights are present, then you can't have vessels, or the vessels get kind of lost and unnoticed and drowned in the powerful lights. So he's going to give an example from a lower level, and he's going to say he's going to make a kal v'chomer, what we call. He's going to say like this: if in much lower levels than the infinite light that's before the tzimtzum, on levels much lower, much closer to our reality, there are stages where the light is too powerful for the vessels to be seen. So definitely that it wasn't that when the initial light was present, the infinite light, for sure a vessel could not emerge. As he explains, even in the levels of after tzimtzum, which the light is already severely reduced through the tzimtzum, the light, which means when we are already in the realm of Kav. We're no more in the infinite light. All we have is this thread. Yet we find that in the early stages of the Kav, the vessels are not yet emergible. The vessels are not yet, can't be born yet. And even in the levels of after the Tzimtzum, we find in the level of Adam Kadmon, which we know is the first sketch of worlds. Okay, so let's follow along. So in order that we get a little bit of Adam Kadmon, let's follow along a little bit in the Kabbalah chart. Let's take out our Kabbalah chart. So what do we have? We have infinite light. Then we have a concealment of the infinite light by having a tzimtzum. Let's see that as a big cutting out a black hole in the middle of this infinite light. Into that black hole, we have the kav. The kav is a blast, a ray of light coming in from above the black hole and permeating and entering into the space of the black hole. But it's a line. That line begins to circle circles. Now, the first sketch that it sketches, its first design, its first world that it makes, it's what's called Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is primordial man, and that has both. It creates a circle of its own, and into that is the image of a man, and the man is more like the Or Pnimi in the world of Adam Kadmon, but it's surrounded by the Makifim of Adam Kadmon. But whatever it is, this is the first original possibility of a sketch of worlds, where all worlds are contained, but they're all in one thought, in one level. Okay, we're still going to learn a lot about Adam Kadmon in the book further. So what do we say? Adam Kadmon, although it's considered already a man, lo yesh adayim metzias hakelim. You don't yet have vessels there. It's still a sketch within the but no kelim. The kelim are not yet pronounced in. Why is that? Because there's too much light. In Adam Kadmon, since it's still such an early state, where the lights, where the kav is so strong over there, although it's only a ray, but the ray is still in the beginning. Remember we said the ray has the beginning, middle, and end? So here is the beginning of the ray. The ray is so powerful. The Ein Sof, the limitlessness of the light, is still felt so strongly that there is no kelim over here. You don't really have any vessels. Because the light is shining there in such a revealed way. The essence of the kav is shining there. We're going to learn later that the kav itself, the way it impacts the world, we said it's a thread, and a thread that gets narrower. And it gets narrower and narrower, like a beam of light that gets less and less as it's traveling towards the middle of the black hole. It gets less and less and less. But one of the explanations of the lessness, of the diminishment, of the dimming of the light, is that in the levels higher than Atzilus, the essence of the kav, the essence of this ray is shining. Once you come to Atzilus, into the world of Atzilus, the essence of the kav is no more shining. It's only a ray of the kav. It's no more kav in Atzilus. It's like a secondary light from the kav. And then, but that ray is like an offshoot. It's like a ray. The kav itself is a ray, and this is a ray of a ray. And if I remember correctly, this ray of the kav, which shines in Atzilus, ends in Malchus of Atzilus, in the last point of Atzilus, and then there is a parsa, and then there is a partition, and then there's no more kav, not even a ray of the kav, then it's a ara of a ha'ara. It's a ray of a ray. So you see how the ray is going. So what he's saying over here is that since an Adam Kadmon, primordial man, which is the first presentation that the kav creates, that the kav is producing, and over there, since the kav is revealing itself, the essence of the kav is revealing itself in Adam Kadmon, so it's still too bright for vessels to emerge. There is no vessels there. It's completely revealed. I am going to say, because I don't want to say something that's wrong, I don't want you to take, I didn't look up before I gave the class, if in Atzilus the essence of the kav still shines, or if in Atzilus it's only it's we don't say the kav itself. I don't remember right now. I don't recall, but I think that you're dealing with array and then array of array. But could be. I'll as Hashem do my homework and I'll see if I can correct it in the next class or two, or rather certify if I'm saying what I'm saying is correct over here. Or maybe the emphasis that over there it's begilui mamish. Maybe Atzilus is also the essence of the kav, but it's not begilui mamish. It's not in full revelation. So we'll see. On that level, the kalim, the vessels, cannot come forth. And now he says, the gam. Now let's even travel even lower. Okay, the kav is the first. Adam Kadmon is the first stage of production of worlds, as the kav is now effective in sketching out creation. But again, it's what we might say an initial draft, very, very high. Then the kav continues to a lower stage, which means the kav gets lessened, and it produces another circle, and this circle is called akudim. Akudim, whatever the meaning of the word akudim is, but in Kabbalah there is this level called, it has to do with by Yaakov, when he's working with the sheep. It describes over there a whole story how he was making a fortune from his uncle Lavan's flocks, and he was made a condition with him that all the sheep that are going to be born, akudim, I think akudim means ringed. The ankles of the sheep had ringed ankles. In other words, only those sheep that had around their ankles at the bottom of their feet, they had a ring of color, of brown or whatever. And then nekudim means the animals that were speckled. And then there's one more, brudim means big spots. So in Kabbalah it says that Yaakov wasn't just messing around over here with sheep, with the genetic production of sheep. He wasn't just engineering sheep. Yaakov was engineering the entire flow of the cosmic flow of energy from stage to stage. So the stage after Adam Kadmon, which is still a very primordial stage, a very early stage, is called Akudim, where you have all 10 Sefirot, but they're all considered one circle. And then you come to a level which is the next world, which is called Nekudim, where the 10 Sefirot are in a state of spots, little points. And the final stage is Brudim, which means a world of Partsufim, which Partsuf means a configuration, which I'm not going to go into right now. But these are evolving stages. So he's saying that in the world of Akudim, even in that world, you don't really, there is already, there's the 10 spheros are there, the 10 possibility of 10 spheros are already there, but they're not 10. They're all contained in one vessel. That's the concept of Akudim, that there are 10 powers, but they're all in one container. What does that mean? That the vessels are hardly being pronounced. It's beginning to come out. That's why you have one vessel. But you can't have 10 vessels. It's only when you finally get down to Atzilus, that's when you have a full manifestation of 10 vessels. In the Kudim, you have already somewhat, but in Atzilus, which is the world of Berudim, that's when the vessels are really emerging. But again, it's not important to go through this because we haven't going to have enough classes in which we're going to be able to talk about all these details when it becomes the subject matter. Over here, it's just bringing it just very matter-of-factly, or parenthetically. The main idea that he's saying is that in order for vessels to come out, lights need to be dimmed. That the light of the pure infinite light, or pure light, which light means undefined energy, that is, when light is too bright, vessels can't come out. So he's showing you how in Adam Kadmon there is no vessels at all. In the world of Akudim, which is already the light is dimmer, but it's still too bright for vessels, at least you can have one vessel. The Gamba Akudim, that's what he explains. All the Sfirot are then considered in one vessel, and you don't really have the pronunciation of the vessels. So if that's true on levels that are post-Tzimtzum, that even there the light can be too strong for vessels to be noticed. So So for sure, if the light wasn't the initial light, the Orein Sof, the infinite light that's before the Tzimtzum, Shalifnei Tzimtzum, that's before the Tzimtzum, It's not possible for vessels to come into existence. Kiim, rather, tzimtzum davka, it's only through the contraction. Where there is a, for vessels to come out, you need to have an absence of light and an absence of revelation. That's when vessels could come out. Because vessels are definitions and limitations, and light is revelation of energy that is not defined. So the light would contradict the vessels. The stronger the light, the less the possibility for vessels. The weaker the light, the more the possibility for vessels. So what is this telling you? That the tzimtzum is crucial for the vessels to come out. The lights are also affected by the tzimtzum. The lights, the essence of the light is not the tzimtzum. There are properties of the lights or the limitations that go on to the lights, but that's not what the lights are all about. That's more related to the vessels. The concept of lights is revelation, and to that, tzimtzum is not inherently important. Quite on the contrary, tzimtzum gets in the way of that. However, since we need lights that can go into vessels, of course we're going to have to limit the lights. But the idea of light is not limitation. The idea of light is revelation. So the lights are more about revelation and more about and their essence is they trace themselves back not to tzimtzum, they trace themselves back to kav, to the thread, and the threads traces itself back to the Or Ein Sof that's before the tzimtzum. But the vessels, that's a whole different story. The vessels can't even emerge when the light is strong. They really need tzimtzum. So first of all, I'm going to say 2 points over here. Number one, that in order for the vessels to come out, you need to dim the lights. And for that to happen, you need tzimtzum. Tzimtzum has to hide the light. And that will allow the vessels to even emerge. Secondly, not only is the tzimtzum over here preventing the lights from disturbing the vessels, but the tzimtzum itself is responsible for the vessels. That means that the substance of the vessels, of whatever vessels are made up of, is from the tzimtzum itself. So it's not only that the tzimtzum, the vessels need the tzimtzum so that they block something that will interfere with them. That's like kind of, stopping something that might get in the way, something. But for the vessels itself, you might say, okay, you don't need the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is not making the vessels. The tzimtzum is only preventing something from ruining the vessels. It's like if I prepare a class and there's some crazy person that wants to come inside and wants to make a lot of noise and not allow the class to be done. So I need to put a guard by the door. It doesn't let the crazy person come in. So we're going to say, is the guard the one who's creating the class? No, the class has nothing to do with the guard. The guard is preventing an interference with the class. So the first point he's making over here is that the tzimtzum is very important for the vessels, because without the tzimtzum, somebody will come, the lights, and they'll flood it and will not allow the vessels to come forth. That's point number one. Point number two is that that the tzimtzum itself is responsible for the vessels. And that's what he's going to develop now. And the beginning of their coming into being, is from the tzimtzum itself. That means that the tzimtzum itself is responsible in producing the kelim, in producing the vessels. Now, we're going to see in a moment, tzimtzum means absence. Absence can't produce anything. Absence is absence. Nothing can happen from absence. Absence is no. From no can't be yeah. Now vessels are a yeah. What do you mean it's a yeah? It's something. Kindness is something. It's not nothing. It's a limitation on the light, yeah, as we discussed earlier, but it's not nothing. So tzimtzum itself on its own can't really produce anything. So as we're going to see soon, it's the tzimtzum that creates the possibility for the space we'll see in a moment. It's the tzimtzum together with the rishimu, as we're going to see in a moment. But it's the beginning of its existence is from the tzimtzum itself, and we'll soon explain what that means. Earlier we quoted from branch 53. Now he's going back to Eitz Chaim, the first portal, Anaf, the 52. The inyan tzimtzum, which over there he explains the concept of the tzimtzum. What is the tzimtzum all about? Well, the galois shirish adin is to reveal, not just to block the chesed, to block the kindness, but to reveal the source of din. And what's din? Din means judgment. And judgment is the source of limitation. Uba and in the Haggah means in the footnote in Eitz Chaim, the shirish adin, what is the idea of the root of din? Hu pchenes hamakoim, is the idea of space, shudugmas hakelim. In other words, the idea of tzimtzum is to bring about the concept of space, which space is limitation, which space is similar to the concept of kelim, because kelim, again, vessels is limitation. So therefore, since tzimtzum produces space, shirish adin, the root of din, and that's what kelim are all about. So the ingredient for kelim, for vessels, is tzimtzum. The primary ingredient for kelim is the primary ingredient for light is not tzimtzum. Again, it's important to note the tzimtzum is going to affect the light, but that's a secondary, that's a superimposed element on the light. It's not the substance of what light is. And the less the tzimtzum mixes with the light, the more the light is light. For light to be light, it needs, the less tzimtzum it has, the better off the light is. Of course, God needs to condition the light so that it can be a light for creation, so it has to be limited. But for whatever light is, tzimtzum is an obstruction of light. But kelim, vessels, for them the tzimtzum is their oxygen. Tzimtzum is their platform. Tzimtzum is everything for them. A Mishnas Chasidim Kasev, and a Mishnas Chasidim, which again is another fundamental Kabbalah book sefer. Over there he says, which runs parallel to the Eitz Chaim, Himtzi, there he says, Kasev, Himtzi Shirish Adin, that the Tzimtzum was what brings forth. Now, by the way, because these are all the students of the Arizal, Mishnas Chasidim, Eitz Chaim, and the Arizal is the one who is Mechadesh, who brought to the Kabbalistic table the concept of Tzimtzum. This whole concept that there was a complete Tzimtzum Arishon that blocked everything in a black hole, that's a Arizal Chidush. It's a novelty of the Arizal, which means a complete breakaway to what was before. So his students, the Arizal students, Reb Chaim Vital, and they're not really even so much writing as students, they're writing just as recording the writings of their teacher. So they are seeking to define what the Tzimtzum was all about. And both of them, Eitz Chaim and in Mishnas Chasidim, in both these places he explains Himtzi Shirish Adin, that Hashem brought about, that God brings about the root of din, b'mashet tzimtzum atzmai, through the tzimtzum. So the tzimtzum produces din. So in other words, we can say like this: Or, light, is a product of chesed, is the concept of chesed, which is revelation. And kelim, vessels, are a product, are a derivative of gevura. Not attributes of chesed and gevura, because that only starts in Atzilus, but the concept of chesed and gevura. So, Oir is revelation, and Tzimtzum is gevura, restraint, and kelim are a product of gevura, and Oiros are a product of chesed. So when he say that the point of the tzimtzum is to be megala, to reveal shirish hadin, v'hainu, what does that mean? The b'chinas makom hu achalal makom, the concept of makom that came about, the space, that's the empty space shabai nitztayru kol ha'olamas, in which all the worlds were drawn. Nitztayru, where all the worlds came about. Okay, I have to stop over here. I know we're in the middle of something deep because we're at the half an hour, and Be'ezus Hashem we shall continue tomorrow.